thank you guys so much for tuning in to Godcast episode 31. I'm super excited because we always just have amazing people that the Lord brings to us. And Thad is a new friend of mine. And, I know a couple things about you. I tried to do a little bit of work on as much research as I could. And you're a smart man. You didn't put too much on social media.
Yeah.
But I know you're a family man. You are a strong, devout believer. And you have been on some adventures. So I'm excited to hear about that.
Well, good.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. If we could just start by just asking, and give us as much backstory as you'd like. What was your upbringing like? What was it like in your family and maybe the challenges you had to overcome to have the Lord come into your life? Like truly know in your heart that you accept Jesus Christ, you accept God. Mm-hmm. And because I know some people were raised with it and they still had to find their own true acceptance,
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much exactly how it started. My parents were actually saved in the Jesus People movement in the 70s.
Wow.
So I actually have fun pictures of my parents' wedding that, any movie you could see from the 70s, that's what it looked like, the whole hippie movement. They were saved out of that. And it was a very interesting time for them. My dad actually was discipled by reading the Bible. Literally, he'd be reading the Bible and God would say, that behavior you're engaging in is not according to my standards. And he'd be like, oh, I guess I have to change something. And so that was the environment I grew up in.
Wow.
I know I accepted the Lord somewhere around 8. And I remember having that distinct impression that I knew I did not want to go to hell. I wanted to go to heaven. And so I accepted the Lord at that point. I got baptized in the Holy Spirit when I was, I think, 12 or so at a youth camp. But there were some really interesting things that kind of played into my life at that time. The world had a pretty strong hold on me. Mm. And so while I was a Christian, I didn't have that awareness of just how much I needed God on a daily basis. It was more almost like there's a lot of people that have that fire insurance mentality. Oh, I'm saved now. I can go live like I want.
Yeah.
And I went through that all through my growing up years. We grew up over on the west coast of Oregon. Then we moved to Payette when I was a freshman in high school. My dad became the principal of a Christian school there. And so that's where I graduated from. It's where I spent my growing up years. And I just, I had a lot of interesting situations that set some directions in my life, some good, some bad. But one of the ones I remember very distinctly, I had started playing the piano when I was 8 years old, and music was something that really just resonated with me. And unfortunately, I was one of those kids who plays by ear well enough that it was harder to read music. I actually took lessons at one point, and it was probably about 9 months worth of lessons before my piano teacher caught on that once I figured out what the notes were and what the timing was, I was not reading the music. It was like stunning to her because she'd never seen that.
In common.
Yeah. Well, good.
I did the same thing in guitar class. He passed me for the effort and the skill, but he knew I wasn't reading the sheet anymore.
Yeah. Well, so one of the more formative events of my life that I remember was actually the last year before we moved to Idaho. I was at our youth camp, and the popular song, this is going to date me for a lot of people, but like the most popular song in Christian music at the time was Keith Green's Run to the End of the Highway. It was the last album they actually released it after he died. And so it was getting airplay all over the place.
Wow.
And I was at this youth camp. We had some free time. So I snuck into the chapel, and I was sitting there playing that song that I just recently learned. And, I would play it until everybody was sick of hearing it at home. But I'm sitting here in this chapel. Nobody else is around. And I start playing it. And a couple of youth pastors from another couple of surrounding towns came in. And one was a drummer and one was a bass player. And they listened to me for a couple minutes and said, would you mind if we sat in?
Wow.
And played with you? I'm like, sure. And they did. And I was like, this is cool. Yeah. I loved it. And we got done playing, it was getting to the end of the free time. And they said, you do this really well. Would you like to play for the opening service, or for the opening song for the service tonight? Wow. And I said, yeah, sure. I'm a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, there's 300 or 400 kids packed out in this chapel. And we opened up with that, we played Run to the End of the Highway, and the place went nuts because it was a very popular song.
Yeah.
And I went, I like this.
Wow.
And so that's
amazing.
And it was good on a couple levels. One, it gave me some confidence in my musical abilities and what God would eventually use a lot in my life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was a draw because I liked the crowd. Right. I loved the participation. I loved I love that feeling, which was both good and bad.
I see the Bible discipling you over the years.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I went through. We moved to Payette, and I went through quite a bit of pretty normal life stuff. I was popular in high school. Of course, we were at a Christian school, so you had a smaller set. I had a lot of good buddies. I had a buddy that lived just right across the street, and we would ride our motorcycles, all day long. And then I'd come home and play on my guitar and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But the world always had this little pull on me, and so I didn't really live my life for the Lord so much as I was like, I got my fire insurance, I'm okay. Got into college and had a roommate that was a great guy, good friend. But we did a lot of music. He would play different instruments too. So we'd go and do little garage band things here and there, sometimes pull in some other musicians. And I loved that lifestyle. I never got into the drugs and drinking side of the rock and roll scene because I'm too much of a control freak.
Yeah.
Well, two things. One, I hate throwing up, and two, I don't like feeling out of control.
Right.
I just really, and so those things never drew me. But a lot of the other parts of that lifestyle, and one of the things that God had also set in my life that preserved me during that time was we were as a family, we went to church no matter what. And you had to be throwing up or something really, really severe to not go to church. And so that was so That's ingrained awesome. In me, in my life, that when I'm in these college years and I'm really not serving the Lord at all, I kept going to church. And honestly, I was making the trip to Payette every day because when we'd moved to Idaho, we lived in Payette.
Yeah.
I would go back to Payette to the church my parents had been, even after they moved back to the Oregon coast. At one point, they moved back to the Oregon coast, so I'm over here in Idaho all by myself. I'm still going to that church until I had an issue where a car broke down. I'm like, right, I got to find something closer.
Yeah.
And so I started going to a church here in town that I had gone to. There'd been a youth conference. I'd gone to it, and I'm like, I kind of liked the way that church was set up. And got in there, a bunch of young adults got around me and just kind of drew me in. And actually, there was a family, the first Sunday I was there, they turned around, introduced themselves to me, and said, hey, we're Jim and Jan Gambrell. They introduced me to their two kids that were around my age. And then they invited me to lunch afterwards. And it was like, I was like, I'm home. This is a church I'm going to go to now, even when the vehicle situation gets resolved here.
Wow.
This is my church.
Yeah.
It comes into significance in a later part of my life.
Okay.
Because we're still connected. In fact, we go to church with them now.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Praise God.
Great people. You would not believe the just solid salt of the earth people.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyways, they set me in, but I'm still in this place where I'm living in two worlds.
Uh-huh.
And it all came to a head when I'd gotten involved with this girl, and it was, not good. And that Sunday, it was really interesting. The church was Capital Christian Center.
Okay.
And Pastor Ken Wild was speaking on, walking through a dry place. And I'm like, Yeah, for a long time now. And God just really used that to minister to me. And I repented, and I'm like, okay, God, you've got complete control of my life.
Yeah. Wow.
And so
it involved the love life that really wow, you and I have a lot in common.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. Interesting, because I want to hear you keep going, but two things that you said already that we have in common is, one, my parents did a similar thing where we moved to Idaho, and then as soon as I got my first place, they went back to Pennsylvania. And I was like, okay. And then interestingly enough, too, when I really stepped out and I was willing to allow the Lord to take the painful spots and the really deep spots that I knew were going to change me forever, it involved my love life. And that's when he showed me the devil had a real hold on me in my intimacy, because that's, that trauma right there, and it makes you feel like you want to grasp for the world, right? The flesh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we're here and it's tempting and we've already fallen. So it's so anyway, I was just really relating with that.
Well, good. Yeah, I think a lot of people have that, and a lot of it is because of the decay in our culture, and the right, and the need we have for God to really. We need a major revival in our country.
Amen.
I mean, it's got to start in our churches.
Amen.
But So, anyways, so now I'm in this church. It's a great church. I end up working with them with the music and stuff like that. In the meantime, I was in college. I went to ITT Technical Institute, which is now defunct. But oh wow, I got my geek degree, the double E, electronic engineering. And up until this point, my goal in life was to get out of college, go get a job in electronics, someplace like Micron or something like that. Make enough money, save up enough money to do my demo album, and then go be a rock and roll star. I mean, that was the way I was thinking.
Yeah. Wow.
And God completely arrested that. And honestly, I laid that side down. And as God worked on me, I just started to say, well, okay, if you want to use my talents in the local church, fine. That's good. And so I did. I ended up playing with with our church worship band. And I had also, along the way, I'd picked up other instruments. So I also play electric guitar and drums and bass and stuff like that. So I got kind of pulled into that world, and I'm working in that world. Get out of college, kind of bumped around trying to find the right job. My goals had shifted, and I was still not real sure where I was going to go. Mm-hmm. And I had another amazing opportunity. It again is going to date me with how old I am, but there was a very popular Christian artist in the 90s named Carmen. And they were looking for volunteers for this concert for altar workers, because he always had an altar call. His concerts were free, and he'd pack out, we were packing out the pavilion down at BSU.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, I go down there as a volunteer. I'm going to be an altar worker, and he is the first altar call, and I was supposed to go with the second, because he'd do like 2 or 3, and kind of, it was very well planned. I mean, everything Carmen did was like top-notch excellence on everything.
Nice.
So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for that second call, and this guy comes kind of rushing through, and he looks at me, he says, "You're volunteering for altar, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I really need some help." I'm like, okay. So I go back there with him, and they somehow had gotten missed setting out some of the materials and stuff like that. So I just jumped in and helped him get everything set up. That guy turned out to be the road manager for Carmen. Huh. And I ran into him after the concert was over and all that stuff. And I said, "Do you need any other help?" He's like, "Yeah, actually, our sound guy needs some help." And so I'm like, okay, I'll go help him. So I went over and helped the sound guy, and him and I are talking as we're rapping chords and putting, doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
And he finds out I've got my double E degree and stuff like that. And he goes, "We're looking for somebody with your education and background to go with us on tour."
Oh, wow.
To, assist me, and also to repair equipment as we need it on the road. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, that'd be cool. So I gave him my number and everything. And honestly, I was like, that was a cool experience.
Yeah.
I'm never going to hear from this guy again.
Right.
Just not going to happen, right?
It's just one of those backwaters conversations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, sure. That's a nice concept.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, he calls me. 2 weeks after that, I am on a plane to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where they were based. And I went and I toured with Carmen for a while as their one of their sound engineers, and I was doing stuff. I mean, mostly electronic stuff I'd have to fix. Is in the middle of the concert, I'd be crawling underneath the stage to find. A lot of times it was just a plug had gone loose or a fuse had popped or something like that. But I mean, you're talking stacks of subs and stuff like that. The style of music he did was a lot more on the pop side, most of it. Okay. Although he was extremely versatile.
Okay.
Because he could play and sing and write just about anything.
I'm going to have to listen to Carmen because I don't think I've ever heard it.
Yeah, he's got a wide variety of music. Very, very talented musician. I actually remember this one experience. We were sitting around in a hotel room. We'd just done devotions. And I brought my electric guitar with me. And I'm sitting there just kind of playing around. And he looks at me and says, "Can I see your guitar?" And I'm like, "Sure." I hand it over to him. And he starts playing. And my mouth dropped open. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is so good. Wow. I mean, he was just a phenomenal guitarist. And
that's awesome.
And Ed, the main sound engineer, had asked me, he goes, "You didn't know he played like that?" I said, "No." And he goes, "He studied from the best jazz guitarists in the world."
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are phenomenal. It's just...
yeah.
Like, wow.
And chord combinations I'd never thought of. And I'm like, he's awesome. So
like soloing with chords. It's just like nuts stuff that they do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just phenomenal. But I learned so much, and it was cool too because at this time, I should probably describe how I look. At this time, I am mullet dude, business in the front, party in the back, because that was the rock and roll style, Then we're talking early 90s, so we're still coming out of the 80s and that whole, we were sitting around a restaurant one time, and everybody was ordering virgin daiquiris, or, and this... It was kind of funny because I'm like, "What do you mean a virgin daiquiri?" And they're like, "Oh, without alcohol." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'd go for that,"
Yeah.
So, but I ordered it in a non-fancy glass. I said, "Can I get one in a non-fancy glass?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." Somebody looks at me and said, "Why would you order that?" And I said, "Well, man, the Bible says to abstain from even the appearance of evil." And they looked at me and they went, Wow. And then, so they all did the same thing, which was really interesting because it turned out that somebody at the restaurant recognized Carmen. And was like, so it was like, everybody's like, "That was really cool that you did that. We'd never even thought of that."
Wow, that's interesting.
And Carmen had looked at me and he's like, "I thought you were just kind of some long-haired hippie guy." I'm like,
I get that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What an experience.
Oh, it was quite the experience. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. Well, we finished that tour and I came back home and they offered me a job to come do that full time. And I'm like, "Okay, let me pray about it." And I prayed and I kept getting an answer I didn't want. I prayed. God's like, "No, you need to stay here. You need to plug into this church and you need to be established here."
Yeah.
And so I did. And it was a hard decision to make, but it was the right decision.
Yeah.
And I knew that's what God wanted me to do. And they were a bit disappointed, but it was fun because they'd come to town on different points in their tour, and I'd hang out with them, and we'd go do all kinds of stuff. And they'd always tease me about, "When are you going to just forsake this will of God stuff and come tour with us?" They're always teasing me a little bit. Part of what was interesting about that time period to me was I was around a lot of what you would call famous people in the Christian music industry at the time. So guys like Steve Camp and I'm throwing out names that are very much in the older set, Al Benson, and some of these. But I had opportunities to meet some of these guys, and I got fairly used to just being around them, where it wasn't like I wasn't starstruck.
Yeah, you realized you were just with people. Yeah, you have a job.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what was interesting about that is that is something that God used a lot in my later years, and in fact even now, because of some of the people I have to relate with now in my life. So, anyway, that was that part of my life, and around I got back in it was in 91. And just plugged into the church, started working with the youth group there and did a lot with the music. And around 93, there was this young adult lady in the church that I started to notice. And this is kind of a funny story how my wife and I got together, but we had some conversations. It was very interesting because a little while earlier, a friend of mine, he was infatuated with one of her good friends, and he'd be like, "Hey, I'll call Julie, you call Jill, and we'll see if we can double date." And I'm like, all right, and I'd even told him I don't really have any interest in this Jill girl, she's pretty and all that and maybe fun, but I just don't see that. Well, it was funny because at some point we were doing early morning prayer every day, every weekday. Mm-hmm. And she was one of the few young adult girls that was really faithful with it. And I started to notice that. I'm like, mm-hmm. This is interesting. And started to make opportunities to talk with her a little bit. And finally, I was getting to the point where I'm like, I'm very, very interested. And so...
Yeah, wow.
Because I was in leadership with the youth group, I had the directory that had people's work numbers in it.
Oh, you?
So I used my position. And what I did was I called her on her work number. I was going to ask her to go out to coffee. Uh-huh. But that morning she had missed prayer. And so I called him like, I really hope I get her voicemail box because this would be fun. So I get her voicemail box. I actually did that, and I'm like, Jill, this is God. Why weren't you in prayer this morning? And then I laughed and said, actually, it's Thad. Give me a call.
Yeah.
So she called me back. She was laughing. She had sent it all the way around to all of her friends that she worked with, and they're all like, if this guy's asking you out, you need to go out with him. So we went out that night, had a 3-hour conversation, and she got to see another side of me because she always seen me working with the youth, and you got to be fun and exuberant and all this stuff. And so she kind of thought this guy's just a goofball, but she got to see the serious side of me.
Right.
And that was that happened September 15th, our first date, September 15th, 1993. We were married June 25th. 1994, so about 9 months from first date to marriage.
Wow!
So it fit well together. So we still at this time at the church and just walking through life, and then we really felt the call to go to Portland. I went to Portland Bible College. Uh-huh. We were there for about a year, and Mark and Dee Dee, Bryan, who are very well connected over there, were getting sent over here to start another church. Oh. And we connected with them there when they came back to Portland to talk about what they were doing. There were things within their vision statement that were both Jill and I resonated with, and we looked at each other across the... I was actually at the piano, and she was out in the audience, and we look at each other like, he's saying stuff that we've talked about. And so through a set of circumstances, God led us back here. We came back the same, actually like 6 days before their official first service. We were back here. It was like January 1st.
That's awesome.
And we've been with that church ever since.
That is fantastic.
So great pastors, great people. We've grown so much under them. I will say this because I think it's important for people to understand when there are right ways and wrong ways to leave a church. And even if the reasons are, it depends, God can move you and stuff like that. But the concept, I think, is so important and so missing in so much of today's world is if God calls you to another church, make sure that you do it right. Mm. And we did. I sat down with Pastor Ken at Capitol and just told him, I said, these are the things we're feeling. We feel like God is directing us to come back here with these guys. And he looked at me and said, I think you're right. And he goes, I release you to do that. I think that's really good. We have maintained a great friendship, Pastor Ken and I have, over the years. In fact, I was working at one place where I had to travel a lot back to Boston, of all places. But at the Minneapolis, St. Louis airport, I'm walking through the airport and I hear my name called. I'm like, no. And I hear it called again. And I turn around and across right across this, huge hall. I don't know what you'd call it there, but it's Pastor Ken Weld from Capital Christian Center.
That's amazing.
Oh, man, we had great fellowship. It was one of my favorite trips because just that whole meeting set my trip. I didn't really enjoy going back to Boston.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the East Coast, it's not a huge fan of, but
right.
Anyway, so we've maintained a great friendship, and I think it's due to the fact that we left right. We still have friendships with people all around the valley because we made sure to walk in integrity in how we left. So
that is an amazing point. I think that God really does bring us to people, and we got to be stewards of that relationship.
Yeah.
And that process. And I love how I can tell in the way that you talk that you have really learned the principles that show why the church has a certain level of authority, like it should.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing because yes, we know that the church is within us, and we know what Jesus. But it's true though, when we commit to a community, that's the church as well. So we have to go that route, and I think that's such a great point. And I can see that you've just had such a wonderful experience. Yeah. Having the Lord direct your path in all these different ways and granting you. What I loved was that story about how you really wanted to do rock and roll, but he gave you a taste of it anyway.
Yeah.
Because he loves you.
Yeah.
He cared about what your passions are, and he said, I want you to go enjoy this. But now, let's have you use it here. And it's so amazing because I could relate with you in so many ways, even with the way my wife and I got married. Very similar thing. We never dated.
Uh-huh.
We were just straight from friends to marriage. It was just like one of those beautiful, we just both, it threw me off in hindsight because it was so natural.
Yeah.
Because I looked at, we just started talking about marriage all of a sudden. And it was just, we're going to go do this. And I was like, my goodness, the Lord was like really just guiding our hearts.
Yeah.
And in such a way that we hadn't had before. And it came back to that healing from the corruption of intimacy before.
Yeah.
And I realized, this is what it's supposed to be like. And funny, you said the same thing about the faith. Mm-hmm. I saw this in her too, because I was not interested either in the beginning. As a matter of fact, I was like, I don't want to just jump into this for my own desires. I learned some hard lessons before that, and sure enough, it was the faithfulness and the countenance change in her that I started seeing. I was like, oh. Wow. And then I could tell he was asking me to take a look at that. Just take a look.
Yeah.
I was like, my goodness, this is amazing how the changes are. So, if I might ask, so you were baptized in a youth group. That's what you was at youth camp?
Yeah. So I was actually baptized in our church, actually in the Alsea River. Alsea was the town I grew up in. But then a couple years later, I was baptized in the Holy Spirit at a youth camp.
Okay.
So charismatic for those who are not. Sorry, but part of the reason I say that and I bring that up is because to me, it was evidence that salvation was real for me.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I went through those years of struggle and not really serving the Lord, not really understanding the necessity of living a life of complete surrender to the Lord, that was, to me, just a necessary, marker in my life.
I understand that.
So, yeah. I think those are important. It's all throughout the Bible. Remember, and they would set up, remembrance stones or,
absolutely
those sorts of things, monuments to God did something here. So, anyways, so that was exactly part of. So
that was definitely okay. So that solidified a lot in you. How did it go? How did the Lord show you His Son? Like, how did that happen? And when you truly accepted that, or I know you said you were saved when you were 8.
Yeah.
Was it just your parents ministered to you and they said, will you accept Christ? And then you started seeing Him in your life?
Yeah. I mean, so here's one of the things that I should probably say. Our lives were very, very, were lived in the miraculous. And I can give a couple of examples. my dad one time was working on something, and this is back in the 70s when everything was bubble gum and baling twine together. This is kind of how we lived our life.
Yeah.
And we were not by any means wealthy, so most of our tools were, older.
Sure.
But my dad was drilling something, and it slipped and went right towards his heart, and it was moving at a fast rate, and it just stopped, and the drill stopped. And it never hit him or touched him. And, he described, I don't even know how this happened.
Wow.
But it was a miracle.
My goodness.
My birth story, there were these two guys that showed up a couple different times in my parents' lives, and they're convinced, and I think they're probably right, they're convinced they were angels. They showed up as drunk people, and my parents gave them a place to stay for the night and somewhere to go. And my dad said it was really weird because they appeared drunk, but there was no beer cans or alcohol stuff in their truck, and they never smelled of booze. But
wow.
So, anyways, this had happened like a few months earlier, and then we lived way far out at this point. It was about an hour and a half trip to the nearest town with a hospital, and my mom goes into labor. And it was that very day, these two drunk angels, in our family, we've always referred to them as the drunk angels.
Drunk angels.
They showed up, again, same thing, no beer cans all over the back of their truck or anything like that, and no smell of alcohol. But
same people.
Same people,
wow.
Same two guys. And they looked at my mom, looked at my dad, handed my dad the keys and said, you better get her into the hospital. So my dad drove her into the hospital, and then came back after, brought her and I back after I was born, and they never seen those two again.
Wow.
Never seen those two guys. So there were miracles like that. There was miracle provision, things
that is amazing.
We would be in pretty heavy duty financial problems, and my parents didn't talk about it a lot to other people, but we'd come out and somebody would have put an envelope on the car with a couple $100 cash in it or something. God told me to give this to you. We had no idea who it was. I mean, just little miraculous things like that all throughout my growing up years. So I had a knowledge that God was real because I'd seen the results of what he had done. And that was really, so I never doubted his reality. Uh-huh. And we've gone through, actually the last few years have been one of the hardest seasons of our lives. And I've never doubted God's existence. Not once. I've never doubted his ability to do anything.
That's amazing.
I've had to get used to living with contradictions, because stuff that doesn't make sense to me. But
for sure,
never doubted, because it to me it's unthinkable. It doesn't even make logical sense,
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that is what another area where you and I relate is because. I always had a sense of the Lord, but I grew up with my mom's agnostic, and I had my father wasn't there since I was 2.5, and then there was a father figure who I believe had an upbringing of faith, but didn't practice according to my eyes, what I could see. So, but I always sensed this presence looking out for me when I was like playing in the yard, or like there was always. But as I went on, what you just said right there was exactly what I kept sensing is, why is there this belief that life isn't perfectly in the hands of some loving creator? Like, why? And not only that, like how you said, I've never doubted him. I almost feel like there's this inherent belief that no matter how much you believe, there's just going to be doubt. There's going to be this idea that you're not going to trust God at some point. When really, can it be the other way, where it's like actually you get so trusting that the challenges in your life now are understanding the contradictions of being a human in that. And that's amazing that you're saying that, because I felt that for so long, and I just hadn't put it into words quite that way. That's wow. It's really awesome.
It's interesting to me because I went through a period of what I ended up eventually settling into more career-wise. At least I spent a good 23, 24 years doing this. But was software testing is kind of the realm I do a lot. So I tell the developers how bad of a job they're doing.
Yeah.
I try and make it fun, but I do. Right. Part of that though, it was a period I went through where we studied critical thinking, and I had to learn all these, fancy epistemologies and, all these, conjecture, refutation, all these mental tools you use to really help yourself be a good tester.
Sure. Yeah.
And I remember at one point, God said, I want you to apply this to me. And I went,
wow.
Well, that's a little scary for me because my life has been lived just with this knowledge. And he took me on this journey, very quiet, very, very inward, where I just pondered and thought through, but took all those tools of critical thinking and applied it to what if there is no God? What's the implications? And what I learned out of that was amazing, because, and I'll get into this in my story side of things a little bit.
Praise God!
But in the governmental realms, there is a reason why our schools push the humanism that they push. Mm-hmm. Because what I discovered was that there is a connection between the larger religious belief of a people, the religious bent of a people, and the type of government they get.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. This is fascinating.
Yeah. There is, if you look at paganism, almost inevitably leads to some sort of empire, kingdom, sort of, a supreme ruler over a people group, no matter how large or small, that sort of paradigm. If you look at Christianity, that inevitably leads, if you read the writings of the founding fathers, it was their faith that led them to establish the representative republic form of government.
Yes.
And then along comes atheism and Gnosticism and all these other, anti-God, really, religions. And when you watch the societies that turn to those, they inevitably go to socialism, fascism, communism, some form of totalitarianism, because the religious belief of the people, there's one of the founding fathers says, you get the government you deserve.
Right.
And when you shift people's thinking that direction, they will inevitably be led towards a certain governmental type.
That makes perfect sense.
It's part of the reason that I'm going to get on a little soapbox here, but
please do.
Back in the 1900s, early 1900s, there was, and probably late 1800s as well, there were some teachings that came into the church that Jesus was going to come back any day. So we got to get within the four walls of our church and make sure we're okay, make sure we're all good and ready for Jesus to come back, which is exactly the wrong. It's like, the right mentality is time is short, get out there and get as many people saved as you can. But that wasn't the way it manifests itself. It was more of this withdrawing. And we withdrew from three key areas of our society. We withdrew from education, from entertainment, and from politics. So when people tell me that politics is ugly and messy, I say, yeah, because the church left the building on that one.
Right.
When we look at entertainment, we say Hollywood is horrible. Yeah, you know why? The church left the building. Mm-hmm. We left Hollywood to its own devices. And when it comes to education, absolutely our education is a total mess because the church left the building on education. And so part of my call to people constantly is, as Christians, get involved in every facet of society.
Amen.
And
I like that you say that too, because it also gives us the notion that we're not off the hook. We can't say, oh, well, they took God out of schools.
Yeah.
Well, we can't really put it all on them. We have to accept responsibility that we walked away so they could take God out.
Yeah. So those decisions in the early 70s, both the Roe v. Wade decision and the decision that removed prayer from the public schools, I can't remember the exact name of it at the moment, but if the church had been actively involved, they should have jammed Washington, D.C. with 1 million people protesting. And I guarantee you those things would have been pulled back. Those decisions would have been changed. And we wouldn't be fighting the fights we're fighting now.
I believe that.
It's one of the big calls. I have a heavy burden for the next generation. And I'll give a couple examples of this. Kind of goes back into my story a little bit.
Okay.
But when we came back with Mark and Dee Dee to start Harvest Church, where I go now, one of the things I did, I spent the first 8 years of the church as the main worship pastor and helping lead the worship team and all that stuff. I had this prayer in the back of my mind because I'd watched worship in churches go up and down as people came and went, a worship leader moves to another area and then they bring in somebody else from somewhere else, and there was always this really hard transition in those times.
Yeah.
I thought, God, I never want to see that. I want to raise up young people from this church to take the next move forward.
Right.
And so I spent the first 8 years really, really pouring into the youth, actually, that church. One of them, my younger brother, he's 13 years younger than I am. He was kind of a surprise. They named him Benjamin because he was the last of the line. That was my dad's big joke. But he moved over he just turned 17. He moved over and he was with the youth group. And I'm like, here's a bass. Here's some stuff on it. And you just start playing. And I want you to practice 15 minutes a day. Give him little pointers. And it was funny because he's like, okay. But he starts playing. He's one of our main bass players now and has been for years.
Oh, wow.
But
hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But around about 8 years, I have 3 boys. They are all high energy, high creative. My poor wife was...
Wonder where they get it from.
I'm so calm and sedate. Anyways, my poor wife was just like at her wit's end with all this. She's like, I need help. And so I stepped back from leading the worship. And when I had the conversation with Pastor Mark, it's like, well, what do we do? I said, well, the youth band's been really coming up. You ought to look at what they're doing. I said, and your daughter, Carrie, is really doing well. She's everything I've handed her to do, she does it well. I think she's got leadership capabilities and qualities. I think you need to look at her. And that was when that transition happened. She became the worship pastor, she was 18 years old. So it was like a big, this is a big thing to her. But she has done such an amazing job. Wow. I mean, it's just incredible. And I'm still involved with the worship, and I get to do the cool stuff now, though. Here's an idea. I can go pioneer it, and then once I get it developed, hand it off to somebody, and they take it.
Right.
Which I'm kind of discovering is is really one of my fortes.
Like is director ability.
Yeah, just pioneer and raise up the next generation. But the next generation is so critical to me. So when I talk to young people, I'm always encouraging them. If I see a bent towards worship, I'm like, okay, let me give you little tricks and hints and stuff like that. And I'll do that with some of our younger musicians and show them little things like, ooh, this is really cool. Yeah, I always tell them, I'm not as good as I sound. It's just because I use these little tricks that make it a little bit easier. They're like, okay, yeah, I like this, So anyways.
It's all about the tricks of the trade, right?
Oh, yes. It's the little things. And so it's been really amazing there. It also plays into some of my political stuff because I'm watching what they're doing with the medical industry, and I'm very concerned about it. Yeah, because this is a reality that I've lived with now.
Absolutely. It is. It's very concerning.
Yeah, it's hugely concerning.
And to put it before God too, that's another almost a compounding of a lot of the things you've introduced. Is that we cannot. He gave us these abilities to even know how to implement. Yeah. Western medicine, Eastern medicine, all of it. And that was a huge thing to me where I was like, I can't be the only one that sees this, that they're saying that the creation is the creator. Is basically what they're saying, and that's really bad.
Well, it's a faulty assumption to start with. So then, when you apply all the scientific principles after that,
exactly,
nothing makes sense. It's just like geology. They're like, we don't understand how this works. I've watched several documentaries on geological stuff, especially like some of the stuff happening in California with the fault lines and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
it's fascinating to me. I don't nerd,
sure.
But anyways, They always start with this assumption that the Earth is millions of years old, and they discount this.
I know.
This is what amazes me. The flood story, Noah's flood, is prevalent throughout almost every society, even in some of these far-reaching places, there is a story of a great flood that wiped out the whole earth. Now, each religion will put its little spin on it.
Yep.
But our modern, educated scientists will discount that entire thing, and then they're flummoxed by things they can't explain. And it's like,
exactly.
Well, if you put the flood
carbon dating,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and how the plates are, we don't know why the plates do this. And it's like, well, if you put this back into the flood narrative, if you add that narrative back in, all of a sudden this makes a lot more sense.
Exactly.
So, anyways,
and the geological time frames of how things could happen. It sounds to me like I watched some documentaries that really laid this out too, about like Genesis and how these things actually occurred, and I was like, this is the first time history and science make sense to me, because I could tell this whole vast, huge, and it's just like Satan to say, let's just flip everything upside down and inside out and make it so that nobody really knows what's right, what's true. So it's all falling into that same pattern. Wow. Thad, I just want to thank you. That was an amazing story, an amazing timeline that led us up to this beautiful family, it sounds like you have.
Yes.
Can you share, is there anything the Lord put on your heart to share with our viewers while you're here? What's important? I mean, obviously, you started on the political route and the education and getting involved with our facets of society. Anything that you want to...
Yeah. I'll say a couple things. And I'll try and be really quick, because I know we're running out of time and I can get a little long-winded.
No worries.
But a couple things. One is never tell God that he won't do something to you. Where some of this stuff comes in, where I talk about the political, I actually, many years ago, I had come from a session where I was riffing around with some friends, and we were just ripping on politicians, not constructively, like, oh, we need better political people in office, but just ripping into them like stupid and foolish. But I was young, and I'm driving home, and the Lord says, what if I called you into politics? And I laughed and said, you wouldn't do that to me. Don't ever do that. Just don't ever do that. Because a few years later, God put me in situations through other, like a guy I was working with was connected with a guy and who was in the state senate at the time, and they were looking for ideas on how to protect. This was right in the beginning of the Obama years, and they're like, we need some stuff in place to help us on the state level, protect us from federal encroachment. And so I threw him my ideas, and he's like, these are really good, let's keep talking. And so we had these email conversations, and then he starts connecting me with people, and the next thing I know, I'm getting calls from state senators. Hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, what? The first time that happened, my wife was like, who was that? I just had this hour-long conversation with one of the state senators, and she goes, who was that? And I said, oh, Senator so-and-so. And she's like, you're not running. I'm like, I don't even know why these people are calling me, but they're calling me. And so,
that's hilarious.
I know. It was,
oh my goodness.
It's been quite the journey. But part of that, God has put me into places more and more. It's been a slow build, but it's been an ever growing increase of influence in the political sphere. And I was fine with that, by the way. I liked kind of being in the background. I like being a consultant. That's one of the things I love to do now. But then in this last year, I ended up running for 2 different positions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I ran in the primaries for state senator for my district, and then in the general, I ran for CWI Board of Trustees. Both of those were not the way I like to go into a race, but it was kind of obvious God was putting us in that place. I prefer to do things long term and think it through and be well planned out. And these were like, we need somebody conservative to run. I'm like,
right. Time to go.
So, anyway, so I am in that realm. I actually did get elected as a precinct committeeman. So I'm involved in the in the internals of the Republican Party, and we need Jesus. We need Jesus, and we need Christians. I am telling you, every time I go to one of our Central Committee meetings, I'm just like, Lord, we need so many Christians to get involved.
Yes.
So I want to encourage people. Actually, precinct committeeman is one of those positions. You get on a little soapbox here, but because Christians need to get involved. When people say that Barack Obama was a community organizer, they don't realize what that means. But what he literally did was he spent several years recruiting and getting elected a whole bunch of precinct committee people. And they're the ones who actually shifted the Democrat Party to the insane left position it's in now. That really, what he did.
I've heard this before.
Yeah, what he did at the ground level, he literally blew away the Clinton years. That's why there is a quiet feud that's underneath there, and you'll hear it little bits in the media here and there. You'll see little pieces of it, but that's what he did. And I look at where we're at now, and I'm like, if Christians will just get involved at this level, your precinct, every legislative district is divided into a precinct. Every precinct has a precinct committeeman. Yeah. You're representing, depending on the size and everything, you're representing 2,000, 3,000 people maybe. It's not a well-known position. You're not going to be on the news. Nobody's going to be digging into your past if you're worried about that. It is more... It's just a very quiet position, but you have a ton of influence. You are in contact with elected officials on a regular basis. You are in contact with people in your precinct on a regular basis.
That's a good point.
If there's a vacancy, say somebody has to step down because of a health issue or because of a scandal or something like that, the Central Committee will get together and they will present. They will vote on up to three different options that they'll send to the governor or to the county commission, whoever is in charge of replacing that position. So you have this crazy amount of influence with elected officials. And
that is a very important note.
Oh, it is. Wow. And on top of that, you are the people who become the political go-to people in your neighborhood.
Oh, right.
We talk about getting outside the four walls of the church.
Yes.
But do we ever do that? And I tell people this. One of the things that is really important in evangelism is establishing relationship with people. So you develop a relationship with the people in your precinct, and you're just known as a political guy, but you be open. I'm a Christian. You be who you are.
Yeah.
And there will be opportunities with people where they have some sort of life crisis, and they're like, I don't know what to do. That guy over there, he's a Christian. Maybe he's got an answer for this issue we're going through with our kid, or this issue we're going through in our marriage, or our financial stress that just came out. So you become that go-to person, and that's where you're going to get opportunities.
Standing a little more in the light, right?
Yeah. Well, because now you're known among your community, and you develop a sense of community.
Absolutely.
And then you get the chance to present the gospel in a way that it's not, their defenses are down.
Yes, that's a great point. Great point.
Yeah.
And if I might say, too, just to share, that is also part of Conservatives Of, correct?
Yes.
So you're also, was it Meridian chapter?
It's a Meridian chapter, yes.
Yes. And so our last episode, we happened to have the honor of having Winston here. So he kind of told us a little bit more about the organization, and it's awesome to have somebody else who's doing that. And after talking with him and you, I feel like I may eventually have some kind of place that I'm called into in this. And if not, it might be a precinct committeeman position.
Yeah.
Because I have been doing a lot of prayer on this myself. I've been at the front lines, as one might say, and I've taken fire, and then I've helped people run in statewide offices and county positions, and I started seeing a lot, and I'm like, you're absolutely right. This is so much more important than people realize. That this somehow, I guess, there's just this weird connotation to politics that has given people the idea that it's supposed to be some far-off, distant thing unless you're meant for that. And it's like, no, actually, we're all meant for caring about our community.
Yeah.
We're all supposed to be there. We're supposed to be part of that engagement. And we just may not know what level yet or what position, but that doesn't mean we can't ask and eventually find it.
Yeah. But we're called to be influencers, and sometimes that influence is as simple as we send an email or we give a call to people. But I think it's important to get involved at every level of our community. As we've seen with some of the library fights recently, we can't rule those out. Every single position, every single elected position needs to have good, solid people who will stand for biblical values.
Yes.
I'm less concerned about parties than I am about biblical values. Will you support those? So that's really important. And I think also, I tell people, it's always, we want to overcome evil with good. Mm-hmm. So we have a big mess in our political system. What we need to do is overcome evil with good. More people need to get involved. More Christians need to get involved. Yeah, but politics is nasty. Yeah, it's nasty because the church left the building. So get back involved and bring the peace and the presence of God into every situation you're in.
Right. Can I ask?
Yeah.
So would you say it's a correct assessment to, overcoming evil with good is helping us kind of understand the idea that we got to quit chastising and thinking we're going to disprove the evil, and more so just focus on the good news and the truth and implement the good works that God calls us to. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, and I don't view it as an either-or situation. I view it as a both-and.
Yeah, nothing wrong with... Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
We both fight against the evil, but then we also get involved to bring the good.
Yes.
And I'll bring a perfect example of that. Not a perfect example, but a good example. The library issue. I'm sure you've heard of what's going on. We've got libraries that... Literally, I've had people bring me pictures that they've pulled out of books that their kids have checked out. And it's nothing more than pornography. I mean, it's just disgusting.
It's bad,
So let me ask you, how many of you who are very creative are writing books?
Right.
Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to pitch it a little, sorry, but I actually did that. Having 3 boys, high creatives. They were getting into, playing certain things that were around certain science fiction genres and stuff. And we took a look at some of the more popular ones of the era. And we talked very realistically about the spiritual elements or the political elements, things that, one of them is very, very big in the pantheistic. And I'm not going to say the name of it, but very, very big in the pantheism realm. Another one, the good guys as they display them are all basically socialist.
Right.
And so we talked through those things and how that really doesn't represent a godly viewpoint. Well, they were younger, so they love talking through story ideas and stuff like that. So we started our own story idea, and we would talk through it over the years. And it was funny because my oldest would take it to school. He was in like 2nd and 3rd grade, and he'd tell all of his friends about the story we were working on, and they would be like, "Yeah, let's play that." And that became their play, was this whole world.
Right.
And then 4 years ago, my wife came to me and said, "I think it's time that you write that story." And so I sat down and I actually finished the very first book. And we've talked through a series of this, literally to the point where we'd sit around sometimes on a Saturday morning for our family time, and we'd talk through all the story elements. And my youngest would be creating some of the creatures in this world, and my middle son would be drawing out maps and stuff like that. And my oldest son and I would be talking through language and culture, and we just created this whole world.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I just got that book published. It's self-published, but it's available on Amazon. It's called Callendale. Callendale, yes.
Callendale.
And it's in the sci-fi fantasy genre. Every adventure the heroes go through, and there are 3 boys in it, of course, because that was, made sense. But every adventure they go through is a lesson on leadership.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the whole thing is building character, integrity, compassion, all these elements you need for leadership, but it's all in this spirit of high adventure.
Yeah.
And little, they use compressed plasma swords and, travel on anti-grav sleds. So there's all these little different elements that are attractive to young men. Because I remember trying to find good books when I was, that age, and it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard to find good books.
I know what you mean. Yep. So,
and I say that the book is out. It's self-published. It should be available in just a few days if you want a print copy to get it. Right now, it's e-copy only, but I'm using the Amazon direct printing or whatever, print on demand. That's what it is.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. But I know, because I've talked to so many people, there are people that are highly creative, have these great stories. Why aren't we writing? We're Christians. We've got all these great character traits we can communicate in story. You think of how Jesus communicated to people. Communicated in stories.
Right.
The parables.
Right.
And some of those were based on actual situations. Some of them were based on just, suppose this person there. Everything he did, though, was mostly in... It communicated in story form.
Yeah.
And I think for Christians, and especially with our kids, we need people who will say, I'm going to buckle down and just the story idea that God gave me years ago, I'm going to get it done. And I'm going to publish it. And even if we have to create a whole underground thing of people, e-publishing and maybe doing the, print on demand or whatever you have to do, get it out there.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in politics, and it's the same thing in education. We homeschooled our kids because we saw too many things in the public schools that we just could not handle. And I think as Christians, the more we push in and the more we invade the culture rather than letting the culture invade the church, that's where we're going to see widespread and massive revival. But it starts with us just taking where we're at and going where God has called us to.
Yes. And you know what? I love what you're saying, because it's possible, and it can also, and it's understandable that may be a daunting task for those that are looking at it saying, how will we ever do enough?
Yeah.
But the truth is, that's the beauty of having a relationship with God and with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, is that one step at a time is all we need in our life.
Yeah.
All we need to do is just follow the next right thing that he asks us to do. And it makes more difference than we ever know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. I love what you're saying, and I'm feeling the Holy Spirit now. Hallelujah. that is so true. Thank you for sharing that. Just fantastic. So if I've heard you right, so basically, we need to, number one, we need to get involved in all facets of society as believers. Yeah. And we should pay attention to the skills and talents that he's given us to overcome with good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
And it may sound daunting, but what's interesting to me is the way that God has led me by creating these different opportunities. And it's just, I'm living my life. I'm doing the best I can. I always have goals and ideas. I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I always have things I'm trying to do. But it's my goal has been first and foremost to please the Lord. And then he opens a door of opportunity. This whole book thing, I did it because this story had been percolating for years, and God just kind of gave me a download of the outline, and I wrote that in a day, and then it sat and percolated for a while.
Yeah.
And then when my wife came to me and said, it's time to do this, and I just sat down and started, it was amazing to me how it flowed. And then, amazingly enough, we were at a family event, and I run into a guy who is a published author, and he looks at my manuscript and starts shredding it, telling me, okay, you need to, here's the writing elements you need to do. But he put me in this place where I was able to actually refine the story to make it more readable, more relatable, more understandable.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so if you just start taking those steps of faith, God will lead you.
Yes.
It does not mean that everything is going to go well. That's been one of the contradictions for me.
Yeah.
God called us into, we purchased a business at the beginning of 2020, believe it or not. January 1st, 2020, we closed on the business, and things went well right up until this little coronavirus thing happened.
Right.
And then I watched what they were doing. I'm like, this is going to hurt us. We went through 3 years of this. We closed the business in November, and it's been a trial. It's been one of the contradictions. God, why would you call us into this and then have it close? I still don't know. I have to be okay with knowing that I may never know the answer to that.
Right.
I may never. God does not owe me an explanation.
Right.
Then this is where extreme trust comes in, because it's got to be like, okay, Lord, the pain we're going through right now. Has to be for a reason. So anyways, so I'm not going to say that everything's going to go well, but I will say, if you're following God, and if you're willing to trust him through the contradiction,
amen,
and trust him through what can be really difficult at times, he's going to open doors of opportunity for you that are amazing. It's why I've been able to do incredible things. Yeah. There's this guy named Sean Foyt. You've heard of him. Okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten to play with him twice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Here in Boise, when he's come and done these, twice now I've been able to...
That is so awesome.
To play with him, which is like me, if you could see the house I grew up in, you'd be like, what? you think that comes to people who have everything together. If you had
that's right.
watched how my life is going, you'd be like, how are you getting to do that? Well, it's because
he puts it all together.
It's because God puts it all together, and I just do my best to obey him. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect. I could list my faults. We could spend another 3 hours doing that. But it's through those. Now. Yeah. Yes. We're going to do a live streamed confessional.
Right. No. And since we're doing mine, that'll be 6 hours.
Yeah. There we go. But the whole point really is this, and I would say this to everybody watching. Just follow God. Just obey him. Obey his voice. Take some steps out in these things. If you're called to get into the political realm, get involved with conservatives. There's chapters all across the state, actually. Get involved with some of these political things. You know what? Show up at the State House sometimes. Oh, yeah. You can go right down there while they're in session. You can go sit in on committees. Yep. Go sit in on committees and pray. We actually watched that happen with some of our central committees and with also with the convention that we did down in Twin Falls. We had people that were there strategically just to pray.
Oh, yes.
And they changed the tide of elections and got better people elected into offices.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, you don't have to be, it's not that complicated. You just have to obey.
Yes,
if you've got a creative bent, get into it. Just let God kind of develop those ideas. Pray over it. This is one of the things that I've even told my boys, because they're all high creative and they have great ideas. I'm like, you need to sit down, pray this through, and write it out.
Yeah.
First of all, what are you trying to communicate to your readers? Not just this brilliant idea that's fun and engaging, but what is it? What biblical truth do I want to impart to somebody?
Absolutely.
Start there and then let God develop that.
Absolutely.
If you are, or your kids have an inclination to music, tell them practice 15 minutes a day. There's a proverb that says, do you see a man skilled in his work? He won't stand before unknown men. He'll stand before kings. This is paraphrase. That's the Thad Butterworth paraphrase version right off the top of my memory.
Yeah.
But when I tell you that I have hung out with big name people that you would recognize, not just the older people there, but there's some of them I've had the opportunity to hang out with that I could say today and people would recognize their name. I don't want to do that because it's not about who I've got the opportunity to hang out with.
I see where you're coming, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see yes.
I have played in front of millionaires. I actually had an opportunity in my early years to play they brought me in to, Marriott was running catering at the time. Uh-huh. And they brought me in to be the on-staff musician. So I would go to these fundraising events they had and play. And what they never realized was I was playing worship songs, just stylized them a little different to fit this high, swanky deal. I'm playing in front of millionaires. The people who donated money to build Stuckel Sky Center, those kinds of people, because I let myself become skilled in my work. And so I want to encourage you, just begin to develop your skills. If you need mentorship, there's, find a published author, find somebody who's involved in the political realm, find a musician who's good, and let them mentor you and train you and teach you. I think as we do that, we begin to invade our culture. We begin to really bring the presence of the Lord and the peace of the Lord to a society that is desperately longing for something. We know that things are not right in our country.
Right.
The problem is we've gotten off track. We have abandoned all the biblical principles, and it's time as Christians that we bring that back in. Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. That was well said, and I know that you're definitely listening to the Lord, and I am doing that with you, brother, and I'm so grateful that you've been here today. Thank you so much for your time, Thad.
Thank you.
What an awesome chance to just see how God was unfolding this, and yet another beautiful testimony of what he's doing with lives and how he's changing lives and what we can do going forward to work in this world to do his purpose. So thank you guys for tuning in also, and stay tuned